dementia. What causes it, and take us through that.
Okay, so I need to explain what dementia is. Dementia is something that affects our global functioning, or brain functioning. So our attention, our ability to concentrate, our ability to remember things. Often we can't remember things, and this is a progressive condition. Our ability to remember people's faces, remember people's names, to remember the things that we do, as basic as to read and write. These are skills that we may have had, but we've lost. And then it goes, as it progresses, you also then lose your basic functionings like being able to go to the toilet. So you lose continence, ability to, in the very late stages of dementia, ability to feed yourself. You get lost in familiar places, you can't remember things. So it's a depending on the stage and how advanced the dementia is, it can be a wide variety of presentations. Often people don't realize, it's a common condition in elderly people, all right, because the brain is aging, but it's not a function of aging. So it doesn't mean that every old person becomes demented. If you have an additional disease process like Alzheimer's, or you have lots of cardiovascular risk factors like hypertension and strokes, then you're going to get dementia. But I want to talk about HIV dementia, because
Yeah, that's the one.
it's a huge problem. It's very prevalent in our society, and a lot of people, it's a life-threatening disease, but with treatment now we've shifted that. So people are living a full life thanks to ARV medication. But few people recognize and realize that HIV is a virus that also infects the brain and affects the brain health. And so it causes damage to the brain, and then compromises all the functions of the brain. So HIV-related dementia is a condition not well recognized by the public, but that does happen. And so people they take ARVs and they live a longer life, but then they find later on that they're not able to cope with all these day-to-day activities because my memory is poor, they slow down mentally and physically, and they're unable to function. And that's something that the general public has very little knowledge and awareness of, how important it is that over and above you taking your ARVs, that you also have to do all those things that I mentioned about promoting and preserving your brain health. Because, as I said, the virus is there. We can't eradicate it, although the ARVs does help to control and limit the disease. But we also have to take additional measures to make sure that we eat well, we remain active, and if there are any other risk factors that we have, to address those so that we can remain cognitively productive for as long as possible.
Right. So among the HIV positive persons, how many or what percentage are those that seem to get dementia? Are there any stats available, or even if there aren't precise stats, but what is the likelihood that out of every 5, how many are likely to have dementia?
Yeah. So as I've mentioned that in the past we would see HIV dementia probably in about 20% of patients, but with the treatment, now that everybody is able to access ARV treatment, that has changed the profile of the disease. So we're finding less and less of HIV dementia, which is wonderful. However, there are lesser degrees of cognitive impairment, which patients may not necessarily recognize and realize, and they may be pushing themselves and wondering, why is it that I just can't achieve or function adequately, and they don't realize that the virus also affects their brain. So we have minor degrees of it's called HIV-associated neurocognitive disorders. It's called HAND, and there are various grades of severity there. The prevalence figures vary because we don't have many studies that have been done. We haven't had any in KZN which can give you specific figures, but we're looking at 15%, as I said, depending on how soon you have access treatment. But I think the important message is that if you have these conditions and you are experiencing cognitive slowing and other challenges with your brain functioning, speak to your treating physician. But the most important thing, there are lots of things we can do to preserve our brain health. I think for me that's the important thing. Is it's not a message of doom and gloom. It's about a message of hope. Just remember that the most important organ is at the top. So to remember to also invest in health, brain health.
Awesome. So when we say dementia, can we say is it curable or it's treatable? And if you are on ARVs, you see that from ARV, from patients that are taking ART, they are showing less and less signs of dementia. Would I be correct in assuming that?
Yes, definitely. It has certainly attenuated the profile of the disease and the profile of the disease and its severity. So that's good news. That's also a good reason why people should take the ARVs. You may feel physically well, and often people, as soon as they start to feel physically better, then they feel, oh, no, I don't need the medication. But you have to keep that virus suppressed. So if you take your medication continuously, even when you're feeling physically well, you may be eating well, you may have gained weight and no chest problems, etc. But remember, there's also that brain that's silently working there 24/7 that you also have to support. So take medication, take your ARV medication.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Stigma!